Hello, God. It's me again. Do you remember me? You should. You've taken everything that I've ever loved. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? You've taken everything that I've ever loved. You've taken everything that I've ever loved. You've taken everything that I've ever loved. Hello, God. Do you remember me? You should. You've taken everything that I've ever loved. It's me again. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? It's me again. Do you remember me? You should. Do you remember me? You should. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Love. Hello, God. Do you remember God? Hello, God. It's me again. It's me again. It's me again. It's me again. God. It's me again. God.
Hello, friends and enemies of YouTube, children of the metaverse, digital junkies, digital zombies, and whatever is in between. Tonight is kind of a personal stream. Doesn't really have much to do with anybody else except posterity. Though we will not disappoint you, but we'll continue to have our blood ritual. But there were some profound influences in my life. I like to call them the anti-prophets, the menacing influences that brought forth their most worst possible influence that they could, that I wound up turning into my advantage. But I do recognize the people by name, their impact, and the plaguing spirits, and sometimes spirits, that controlled not only their emotions, but their actions, their works, their behaviors. And it educated me very early. So I want to do on the 12th day of this blood ritual. You lay unto posterity the 12 anti-prophets that brought about this anti-social, anti-conformist, anti damn near everything that has to do with being enveloped by others and their opinions, their beliefs. Because I learned at a very, very young age from the best of the anti-prophets, by the menacing spirits that controlled them, and by the effects that they had on me. So this really, you're looking for some type of amusing entertainment to feed your digital addiction, or you're looking for something, hey, Singularity, how's it going, brother? Just a bit of posterity tonight, Singularity, but you are welcome up here always, as well as anyone else who dares to endeavor into the realm of madness that is the Axis rat blood. But we can't start this show off without first a prayer.
Our Father, who art in hell, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in hell. Give us this day our day to sin, and allow us to trespass upon others as others trespass upon us. In your name, let it be done.
First, I would like to say that whatever malevolent entity with the foulest of intent that brought my mother and my dad together, my dad being native, earthbound, natural, my mother, who I would consider to be of Nephilim blood. She's not even a gory. She is just by nature one of the first and foremost imposing vi- vile that it hurt. Oh, vile. Vile doesn't even come close to what she is. She all right, Christopher, take this fucking expanded goddamn fucking smoke and straighten my goddamn voice out. Thank you. I know God doesn't like to hear about his fucking mistakes, but he's made enough of them. Now, my mother, at 13 years old, was a partier, drinker. She never really got into some type of illicit drugs, but she was a foul being. And somehow, fate would have it that her and my dad would produce an offspring, me. And she used that as a reason not to have to go to school, to leave what she considered to be a podunk town, white bread, small town America, where she had trashed her reputation completely. And she went to Liberty, Kentucky with my dad after she got knocked the fuck up. And I don't know how she figured that was a step up, but I guess to her it was a way to get out of school, a way to continue drinking and partying, and a way to relinquish herself of responsibility for her behavior. And among this madness, these two pathetic excuses for human beings procreated, I was uh, the abortion gone horribly wrong. So, as they tried to develop a life together, they found that they were highly incompatible because they were exactly one and the same. Irresponsible drunks with no regard for anyone but themselves, and thus they could not forge any type of successful endeavor in life. And they split when I was very young. And I realized that there was a profound influence of an entity that began this. On my dad's side, I suppose it would be the entity of lust, desire. He was 27, my mom was 13. I guess that was acceptable back in those days. I don't fucking know. And my mom was under the influence of a spirit of feral, self-serving behavior. And thus began the first influence of the unholy 12, my mother, who plagued me and still to this day continues to plague me with her embodiment of iniquities, principalities, her contempt. And though her alcoholism led to many different varieties of substance abuse, mostly pharmaceutical, today she is just a complete wasted excuse of a birth giver strung out on heavy opioids. Secondly, would be my mom's brother, Gerald. Gerald Adams. Though he is dead now, he also was nothing but a piece of shit Nephilim drunk. And I call them Nephilim because they all had blonde hair and blue eyes. They all carried the same contempt and hatred. And they were all subjected from the Adams side with an insatiable need to stay fucking drunk. And he was extremely abusive. Verbally abusive, physically abusive, antagonistic, and a complete disruption to my childhood. He fell in love with a bitch, and when this bitch finally broke his heart after he pile drived her in the middle of the fucking road, she finally got the courage to leave his dumb ass because he was a drunk. And he moved in with my grandmother, which, if any of you know my history, you know that my grandmother adopted me because my mom's drunken neglect at 3 years old of my age caused me to lose my right lung. And this bastard piece of shit moved in with my grandmother, started a little sole proprietorship roofing company to support his alcoholism, and became one of the most violent influences in my life. By the time I was 15 years old, I was able to carry all day my own shingles up the roof. I was an applicator. By the time it was said and done, I had enough knowledge to be able to applicate a fucking roof. And I had to work under this abusive bastard because he thought it would make me a respectable man, responsible. But just as my mom introduced me to my first opioids, this asshole introduced me to alcohol. Not that he had to. I mean, my best friend's dad worked at Brown Forman and left liquor all over the place with playboys. So what better for a couple of 8, 9-year-old kids to do than to steal a bottle of liquor, pack of cigarettes, go up into the woods, swing on grapevines, get shit-faced drunk. But he just contributed to it and made it much easier. And he had great aspirations for me to become a drunken fucking roofer, just like he was. Which is interesting because he's dead now. And on his way out of this particular plane, not only was he a pathetic nobody that couldn't do a fucking thing because he was trying to roof a house in the middle of the winter, drunk, fell 2.5 stories, demolished his body, lost his ability to be able to applicate and roof properly, still tried to run his business, drank twice as much, and got hooked on crack. And eventually, he died at a very early age, eat up with cancer. I was happy to see his ass go. Then there's a second individual, which was not a full sister to my mom and her brother, but her name was Mary Lou. She was a Peyton, and she is the one that tried to use religion to frighten me into submission by the threat of hell, fire, and brimstone. Rock and roll will send you to hell, and you need to dedicate yourself to the Church of God, Southern Baptist. And she used every tactic in the world to terrify all of us kids into submission. Even her own kids who can't fucking stand her turned out to be some of the most fucked up individuals to ever disgrace the face of this earth. Well, she was probably the biggest inspiration for my contempt and rebellion. So instead of implanting a seed of anything positive, she absolutely destroyed my whole perception of not only Christianity, but the hypocritical nature and abusive disgusting mindset that these people display. Thus, she had a tormenting spirit. It was one that had hold of her tongue, and it utilized her tongue to spread blasphemy and lies, deception and falsehood. And I learned very quickly what these people were about and how they could affect the people around you. It made my cousins terrified of me. It burnt my fucking record, stuck subliminal prayer cloths under my fucking mattresses, burnt my metaphysics, all in the name of an indoctrinated blasphemy that she had utilized at first to try to indoctrinate me, and then she tried to use it with the family to condemn and exile me. Another tormenting anti-prophet. But there's more. Yes, there are more. And it's fucked up that most of these people were direct influences in and on my life until I broke free of all the horrible things that they had to offer. Now, we had another brother to this Mary Lou, and his name was Bill Payton. And this man found himself to be so pious that he could cast judgment on anyone. And once he had spoke his judgment, he felt in his indoctrinated mind that he held some righteous place. And he would make it a point to inconvenience me, to try and stifle my forward movement with his idealistic beliefs. He was definitely bound by the spirit of blasphemy. Truly blasphemous. We'll move a little out of the range of family here. And let's go into some of my loving endeavors. Now, we would use Marcia Hobbs as one of the female false prophets of iniquity, but she was just a catalyst to a true prophet of evil. One of deceptive revenge, contempt, and now that I understand the full spectrum of it, one of the most vile of people that ever entered my life. That would be Nancy Hoke. That would be my son's mother, my first wife, who had not a pot to piss in, nor a window to throw it out of, had a bastard daughter, which I adopted, and a need to find revenge on Marcia, who was one of my first true loves, but refused to ever go to my performances because she was jealous of the groupies. And that's how I wound up meeting this Nancy Hoke. And I took her on for her daughter, Lacey Jo Hoke, who was less than a year old. And it really bothered me after I had gotten close to the child that it had no father. And this poor bitch, Nancy, hadn't ever seen anybody that had possessions, money, opportunities, talent, success. Yeah, she definitely didn't waste any time with that one. And that's where my son comes from. She now resides in a mental institution, no longer competent or sane enough to function in general society. But once again, blonde hair, blue eyes. Confounding, isn't it? And we'll just scoot on up the list to one of the next profoundly evil female anti-prophets that made their way into my existence when I was in the stages of finishing up a ballet, Ferguson's Academy, music, and getting ready to re-endeavor into a career. Shut the fuck up, dude. Really. That goes to rebuke and reprove, man. Don't need to hear you shit, brother. But her name was Melody Schmidt. And she was a female anti-prophet who gave birth to my daughter, Sydney, who I immediately nicknamed Squeaky as a subcultural reference. And needless to say, yes, I had full custody of my son. I had rebuilt an empire, married, and had a daughter. And for several years, she was able to lie, deceive, and manipulate. But eventually, after developing a serious addiction and her alcoholism started to come through in a profound way, she started wrecking vehicles, became, we'll just say, sexually mischief with other females outside of the scope of what we were doing. And she endeavored to fall into complete failure after the divorce, which I gave to her on Christmas Day. I didn't file it, nor did I file the first one. So on Christmas Day, I signed the divorce papers. As a fucking Christmas present, I guess. And she went on her merry little way into a non existent career, a substandard living. She completely demolished and destroyed her parents' accounts, their cars. She turned out to be quite a volatile disappointment to them. And the last I heard, she was on Antabuse, habitual traffic offender, and my daughter, Sydney, will have absolutely nothing at all to do with her. Ah, damn strange. And then we will get to some of the other anti-prophets that had a most horrible and profound effect on me. As I roll a cigarette, because this one was most vexing. This one was like having a toothache that just never fucking went away. And no matter how hard you tried, and no matter how much you tried to absolve the situation, it continued to be nothing but a disruptive annoyance. And an interesting thing is this was my mom's husband, Randy Keene, who I don't believe ever uttered a truthful word from his mouth during the course of his entire life. Nor do I believe either of his children did. I I had to endure this pathetic piece of contemptuous shit for sake of my mother, because if I was going to have anything to do with my mother, I had to tolerate this bastard's lying fucking mouth, who is not only antagonistic, a liar, an instigator, but was not content or happy unless he was causing some type of dramatic disruption. Reminded me of a fucking bearded bitch, as well as his fucking son, my half brother in law, I guess, the one that overdosed on heroin. Yeah, he was quite the perplexing plague, but fortunately enough, he wound up taking the jab. And need I say much more? Let's just say he didn't even get to his booster shot. And his gargantuan fat fucking ass suffered a massive coronary with symptoms of, I suppose, what he felt was the plague. Who knows? Anyhow, that's another one that took entirely too long to die. I would like to have been free of him years earlier. But I am now, profoundly. I couldn't even find the integrity to go to this asshole's funeral. That's how detestable he was to me and had become to me. But my mom did bleed him dry. She truly did. She damn near broke him several times. And he would recover, and once again, she would utilize his finances because she was deceiving him too. And she was utilizing his money. It was a gold digger would. But that wasn't the only husband she had done that to. No, she had prior ones. And all she knew how to do was spend their money, get drunk, party, and try and tell me how to conduct myself. Though I absolutely did not, would not, and to this day have not. So respectfully, uh, as far as I know, she has no living spouses to bleed for money. And especially after a vexing and most profound experience. I mean, I'm sure that amongst 12 prophets that seem to have redeemable qualities to the Christians, the anti-prophets in my life were also a blood lineage. And as much as I love my son, and as devoted as I was to being a accommodating dad, seeing since I never had one, I did the best that I could and tried to be as accommodating to his needs and his wants and his development. And he found that rebelling against rebellion was going to be his affirmation. That instead of being a free willed, free thinking artist, no, he was going to conduct himself in a conservative, military, and most violent way, which developed over the course of years to the point where he became virtually uncontrollable. His mom wanted nothing to do with him. My mom took him for a couple summers and would call me to come get him because he was so hostile. And he tried to utilize that as a weapon against me. Nothing I could do about it. Nothing I could do for it. You know, you can only help develop a child into a man to a degree. As most rebellious teenagers, he did take on that extreme rebellion. And it got him put away into juvenile detention till he was released as an adult. But I did make every visit, and I was there for him. Which meant a whole lot of nothing in the end. Because as soon as he got out, he went to my mother's house. And my mother started to become a great influence into his life. And she fed his inevitability. She gave him money. She bought him things, idle things. She turned a blind eye to his drug habit. She always, no matter how violent he became, gave him a place to stay. And she helped to create one of the worst adversarial forces that I had to deal with in a most divided way. One was with love, and the other was with complete tolerance. He had a profound demonic principality to him, all the way up until the last day that me and him had spoke. And I had to get a restraining order because my mom had been threatened enough that she ran him off. And then he'd come here where he was most welcome until he decided that I was expendable. So, yeah, he was definitely a perplexing anti-prophet. And then we'll come to my daughter. Now, I've always approached my daughter with the most sincerity. And there were several years because her mother had custody of her that we weren't able to build as strong a bond as I would have hoped. But she turned out to be a very profound musician, a free thinker, an artist, a metaphysicist. She made it through college, had a great job and career, developed a band, went on tour, started slinging ink, developing art, selling it. And somewhere along the way, after convincing me and being a part of my life, my son, after doing the most horrid thing that he could have done, and when the gavel dropped, my daughter, having a very close relationship with my mother, joined my mother in contempt for me as the responsible influence that caused a 29-year-old man to murder someone, which let me know exactly where she stood the whole time. She was fake, plastic, and expendable, or I was at least. She wasn't to me, nor is she. And she gave little regard to any for the value of not only the personal items of sentimental and deep value, but I don't think that she had a bone in her body that could potentially conceive or understand the value of a truly empathetic person. And that confounds me because she has a very wonderful and graceful demeanor. But you never know. You just never know who's feeding the mind of, I suppose, the more influenceable. So she became another perplexes prophet of ill intent. Yes, an anti-prophet. Suppose you're going to have people turn on you. They should at least hold some significance to you so that you can have a real reason to consider them in any way, shape, form, or manner as an influence or an effect on your life. You're going to have to excuse me for a moment. We are reaching the final three, which aren't as significant probably as the others, but were just as perplexing me to bring me to a understanding of how pathetically little humans regard their own dignity because they are self-serving. And instead of following their social behaviors and patterns, I deviated and I continue to deviate lest these malevolent anti-prophets affect my life any further than they already have. And I know you must be thinking, what a vicious, cold bastard I must be. No, I'm just well educated on what people, no matter what station they hold, family, friend, when it comes down to it, they can all be bought and sold, and they all have their own personal agendas to show how insignificant the metaverse and social media personalities are. I would turn to my own family for influential contempt before I would even take for a moment the measure of someone on the metaverse. as being worth their weight in binary. They all have their own agendas. Temporary allies. Just little proxy personalities that come and go. And the only true relevance they have is, suppose, if you have internet and a device to communicate with them. Outside of that, they truly don't fucking exist. Nor are they circumstantial or consequential. But these anti-prophets that I speak of, these are actual physical human beings. Now, there is an interesting influence. I had a cousin. Her name was Cindy Morris. That would have been Mary Lou, the religious fanatic's daughter, who turned out to be, in the 70s, a very masculine female. And was ostracized by her mother for her behavior and her endeavors. And thus, she found herself endeavoring into witchcraft. And that was the start. She was a heavy pothead partier. Never could get her shit together. She had more facial hair than I did in my teens. And you could always profoundly expect something stupid out of her at any family function because of her witchcraft and her chosen sexuality. And then she went to California and became a full-fledged Satanist. Yes, a soul-selling, adversary worshiping Satanist. And she brought her rancid ass back from California. And I was still developing my love for rock and roll and sex and drugs. And she, as my uncle, lived with my grandmother and was a heavy influence until she got scared. Something frightened her. And the family gathered together as the religious zealots they are. They took her to Florida for an exorcism to try and win her soul back from the devil. And when she came back, she was an ex-Satanist, lesbian, Christian, who decided that I was now going to hell. Talk about a Judas. I mean, really? I mean, she taught me a profound appreciation for females, witchcraft, and alternative religious perspectives. And whatever scared her, I have no idea, nor do I really give a flying fuck, because after she claimed to have found Jesus, she became one of the most judgmental, finger pointing pieces of shit ever crossed my fucking path, though she was never brave enough to confront me. Even at my most vile. And she was not Christian enough to pray. And keeping it within the family, I had an aunt on the Peyton side, Wilma Sue Jackson, who was another religious zealot who never quite understood that monogamy in marriage was kind of a biblical thing, though she did finally give herself over to a true Nephilim. And they had many kids. And she had many kids prior to that, and they were all my cousins. And I can't think of one of these little fuckheads that, because of her zealot belief and her ability to exchange husbands out in the name of Jesus, who couldn't justify my behavior because of her. And though they were highly intrigued and would sneak around to indulge in my endeavors, always had that treasonous Christian ability to involve themselves into someone else's endeavors, feel guilty, and then run their fucking mouths. Just like a little bitch, snitch, piece of shit. Yep. And the majority of her children turned out to be sexual deviants, except for one particular one who turned out to be a fairly decent person. And he carried his dad's namesake. But he has nothing to do with his family or his sisters and brothers, because he was able to see the hypocrisy And he went his own way, did his own thing. And at least out of the baker's dozen that this aunt of mine popped out, one of them, one, turned out decent. But he's not on this list. But his mother is, because she was extremely intrusive into ostracizing and outcasting me as a satanic and a horrible influence on her kids. And boy, if I was to tell you the sexual deviancy of her offspring, that would definitely turn your stomachs. And it would probably stoke the fires of hell just for me mentioning the atrocious behavior and atrocities of a sexual nature that these pathetic fucks got themselves into. And then we come to the 12th. You guys probably don't know that I have a half brother, and it probably wouldn't surprise you that he has blonde hair and blue eyes. And my mother gave him up before birth. Yes, this wonderful birth parent and all her responsibility birthed a child after me. But before it even left her foul vagina, she had signed it over to her half sister, Sue. Yes, the one that raised all the deviant children, except for one. His name was Jamie. And he was always profoundly jealous. He was contemptuous, lying. He had no problem with, I guess it would technically be his cousin, legally his sister, sexual endeavors from a very young age. They kept it hid, tried, before what that was fucking worth. And he went on to become a profoundly arrogant loser. And to this day, after many, many years, we have yet to speak. Because the last words that were uttered from his mouth concerning me was after I had gotten stabbed to death, or let's say, stabbed to a NDE. And his sentiment was that they didn't use a big enough knife. So his sentiment then was that he had wished that I had died. Though I was not a part of his life, nor did I have an effect on his life or an influence, nor did I care to. But that sentiment alone set him apart. I no longer seen myself as having a half brother that I never really got to know. I seen myself as having an enemy fully that had revealed itself. Another hidden anti-prophet. And there you go. 12 anti-prophets as if you care. And I told you this is for posterity's sake. Has shit to do with you, but it is factual. It is on my channel, and it is recorded on my channel for posterity's sake. So whether you like it or not, or whether you care to fucking hear it, means shit to me. Because I didn't do this for you. This wasn't for your entertainment. This wasn't for your fucking benefit. This was for posterity's sake. So that one day, if somebody chooses to review the archives and they find themselves in a lineage family tree, and they run across my ass, and they do a digital research, they can truly know exactly some of the idiosyncratic natures of their bloodline. Now, mind you, this is not my dad's bloodline. They were a completely different breed of people. This happens to be what I consider the Nephilim. The blonde hair, blue eyed, genetic donors that all tie back to one Dorothy Marie Baker. I suppose she would be the Antichrist of these spawn. And upon that, I have documented what I wanted to document. I have now, for posterity's sake, that which is etched within a server farm, within the metaverse, the digital realm, for retrievable information that will span across time, or at least as long as there's electricity and a grid to support it. And all these things help develop a very young mind to endeavor into places that you who I consider to be less fortunate, will not ever know, will never experience, will never understand, or even comprehend. And that is the dividing line, is where you dare not, I dare.
It doesn't. Mission. Doesn't. Mission.
Now let's not forget why we are here. This is 12th day of a blood ceremony, a blood ritual, an endeavor of 28 days. So let's gather our resources. Yes, tonight we have made it to John. Huh. Well, as usual, um, don't want anyone to think that I don't have conviction. Your Book of John as a tribute offering, as a sign, a seal, a pact, into things that you can only imagine because of your fear, because of your indoctrination, and because of your safety protocols. And I don't expect you to understand fully or ever, but you would be very confounded at what I truly know. And do not share. I always like to display the smoldering and the blood. Let us not forget the blood. And Jesus wept. And we'll let that smolder into charred blood, symbolic remains. And no, it doesn't put it out if you're concerned. It actually has holes to breathe, and thus it smolders, releasing the energy and the entropy into the universe. And the ethereal, the ether, the uninfluenced potential, and things that you probably wouldn't comprehend or understand. You had the fucking blueprints in front of you. I accomplished what I set out to do tonight because I spent all day doing artwork, three-dimensional artwork. Maybe whenever I get a little further with the second plateau, I might reveal it to you, let you see some of the endeavors of this week in art, music, design, maybe, maybe not. Anyhow, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here for any other reason than my own posterity this evening, and to continue a blood ritual. And on that, there's the wink. I will give you to the end of this particular farewell. And if nobody hits the wink, I'm done with you.
Trembling with horror and throbbing with emotion. Trembling with horror. Trembling with horror. Trembling with horror. Trembling with horror. Welcome to hell.
All of my most sensitive areas were inflamed. My extremities pulsating with tingling sensation.
Welcome to hell.
Have we seen the actual reality of a monstrous crime? Or merely an illusion, the product of a tortured brain? Welcome to hell.
Obsessed with the taste of flesh.
He was cruel and a sadist.
Swaying back and forth. A beautiful thing taking me away.
No one had a bad trip.
A beautiful thing taking me away.
No one had a bad trip.
A beautiful thing taking me away.
No one had a bad trip.
A beautiful thing taking me away.
No one had a bad trip. It was all very good.
Sucking the hallucinatory acid into the system.
My head is spinning. My head is spinning. My head is spinning.
Sucking the hallucinatory acid into the system.
My head is spinning. My head is spinning. My head is spinning.
Sucking the hallucinatory acid into the system.
No one had a bad trip.
The mind of man rests on a delicate balance between reality, the world of light, and the other, darker world below the threshold of consciousness. Welcome to hell.
You. Do you know that?
We're happy to have you with us tonight and hope you'll come back often.